Dear friends, I believe we're here because we understand the need to strengthen human values and ethics in both the private sector and the public sector. Am I right? Am I right?
Absolutely.
Good. In the public sector, the recently published World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Index for 2012 and 2013 says the following: excessive bureaucracy and red tape, over-regulation, corruption, dishonesty in dealing with public contracts, lack of transparency and trustworthiness, inability to provide appropriate services for the business sector, and political dependence of the judicial system impose significant economic costs to businesses and slow the process of economic development. In addition, the proper management of public finances is also critical in ensuring trust in the national business environment. End of quote. On the private sector, the report states that the recent global financial crisis, along with numerous corporate scandals, have highlighted the relevance of accounting and reporting standards and transparency for preventing fraud and mismanagement, ensuring good governance, and maintaining investor and consumer confidence. An economy is well served by businesses that are run honestly, where managers abide by strong ethical practices in their dealings with the government, other firms, and the public at large. End of quote. We honestly could have chosen easier challenges, but none as morally rewarding, none as transformational, none as painful and tough going. I say so because we do live in a world where many of the most reputable gamekeepers are disguised poachers, where many of the most respectable auditors look more at their interests than those of the shareholders they are paid to protect, where some banks trade integrity for business development, and where too many politicians and government officials publicly salute good corporate governance and good governance with one hand, but secretly take campaign contributions and bribes in the other. With an estimated $1 trillion being paid in bribes annually, corruption is the greatest obstacle to inclusive growth and inclusive economic and social development at the national, regional, and global levels. Dear friends, I was once the CEO of an airline, and we wanted to become an airline that we and all our stakeholders could be proud of. We sought to become such an airline by promoting integrity, meritocracy, and commitment. We adopted and promoted a code of ethics. I have no doubt that these actions contributed to the discovery of fraudulent activities by the highest corporate officers of the company over a period of 17 years. Now, rather than being tasked by the national leadership and majority shareholder to clean up this mess, I was actually told to look away and focus on the business instead. I could not do so and was forced to resign. The contents of this Enron-like Pandora's box then became public, and some corrective measures were finally taken. But I was no longer with the airline and was invited to join the Commonwealth Association for Corporate Governance and help promote good corporate governance throughout the Commonwealth. But let me share with you this morning some of my hard-learned lessons. Firstly, that a country's governance influences its corporate governance, and vice versa. Secondly, and most importantly, that both good governance and good corporate governance require people of integrity. We need people who are genuinely believers in and are committed to honor ethical values without fear or favor. We also need to encourage good people to speak out rather than pretend to see and hear no evil. We need to break the vicious circle of business people secretly financing politicians and then exploiting the elected but indebted ones. We need to deal honestly and firmly with all acts of corruption as well as the root causes of corruption. Now that I'm with Etihad Airways, I find it gratifying that in his introduction to our Code of Ethics, the President and CEO states, and I quote, "It is critical that we protect the reputation that we have worked so hard to build by conducting our affairs to the highest possible ethical standard." End of quote. The Etihad Airways Code, on which all employees are actually trained, calls for common sense and attitude that seeks to comply fully with both the letter and spirit of its principles, the avoidance of all appearances of improper behavior, and the use of a confidential ethics line to raise concerns. As Rajita reminded us this morning, the focus must remain on outcome, not processes, codes, or roles. And this reminds me of a very long-serving priest who passed away. And when he actually arrived at the gates of paradise, he was kept to wait for a little while, whilst an awful bus driver was actually ushered in. And when his time finally came, the priest complained to the gatekeeper as to why he would serve God all his life, was kept waiting while this awful bus driver was ushered in. And he was told in very calm terms, "You had obviously served God very well, but after a long while, your sermons were becoming so boring that when you were preaching, people fell asleep." But this driver was actually so awful, when he drove, all his passengers prayed non-stop. So focus on outcome, on deliverables, and not the processes, is my message to you. But let me close, dear friends, by simply saying that we should never, ever stop developing our intelligence, our commitment, our skills, our courage, passion, integrity, entrepreneurial zeal, and enlightened imagination. We must recognize that to do good, we must do well, but to do well, we must do good too. That's how we'll make a positive and sustainable difference in this world of unprecedented change and incredible promise. Thank you.